Okay, so let's talk about involving the viewer of these 3D objects. We were talking about art in the round and walkthrough pieces, which demand, a little bit more participation from the viewer. So we could pick something up from a pedestal, we could turn it over, feel its weight, smell it, use it, sit on it, or just walk around to see what goes on the other side. Very different from a two-dimensional piece, such as a painting, which is sort of like a window. With three-dimensional things, they actually compete with us for space. They are in our physical space. It's sort of hard to ignore, really. But then again, artwork can be ignored, so it's our job to make it more interesting and compelling that people want to actually look at it and pay attention to it. So one of the first ways that artists can make people more interested is by using a more visually appealing or tactile material. This is Sheila Hicks. This piece is called Pillar of Inquiry, and it's all these very nubby, hand-dyed loops of yarn that really make you want to go up and kind of run your fingers through it. Dale Chihuly's glasswork is another one. It's just sort of glows. It invites you to go up and feel the smoothness, although they also look, knowing that they're glass, they look sort of fragile, so you'd want to proceed with care. Sometimes just engaging curiosity. This is a fountain, and we look at it, and how is this big water spigot? How is it being suspended in midair? Well, I mean, you can guess. You want to go in and see what actually is inside of this spewing water that holds it up. It just engages our curiosity. Pieces like this, sort of at a weird angle. We're human. We want to walk around and see what's going on behind there. Another thing that compels people to want to go up and look more carefully is just a certain degree of realism, of how it's represented. And in this case, extremely realistic human forms. This was created in, 1864. It's called Wounded to the Rear. So real images of these soldiers here. You've got some, his arm is in a sling, there's some bandages, and so realistic, but not particularly very emotional. You've got this Union soldier, but you don't really see the sweat, the dirt, the blood, and the terror of actually experiencing war. So they're kind of looking more at the heroism rather than the horror. Here's another piece, extremely realistic. This is a trompe-l'oeil, or fool the eye piece. It's made of clay by Marilyn Levine. It's got the patina. It looks very worn down. This whole thing is ceramic, except I think the metal hardware is not. But it does have a sense of emotion to it. It makes you, it's sort of nostalgic in a way, I suppose. Maybe like going up into your grandmother's attic or something. Conversely, you've got your very realistic things, which people are always amazed at. But we also have abstraction, where you're either simplifying or exaggerating something. This is one of the Venus of Willendorf amulets. It's only about 4.5 inches tall, but in this case, the whole thing is very abstracted. No face here. The important parts, the parts that want to be exaggerated, are the breasts, the pregnant belly, It's a whole statement about women's fertility. That's the importance of it. Another look at abstraction here. This is Matisse. This was done over a period of about 22 years. The one on the left, the most realistic one, and over the years, just how he made these get more and more and more abstract until this last one. Let's see, there's another view here. This last one is just sort of two pillars with, this abstract form coming down the middle, but an interesting progression of how this artist is able to look at form. Here's another series of his work, Matisse's work. This is his wife, Jeannette. Most realistic, and gets more and more and more stylized, simplifying the forms and exaggerating other parts of her features. I use the word stylized, I think, and this is a good example of stylization, which is sort of subordinating accurate representation to kind of a desired way that you want to approach a design. In this case, we know it's a horse, but they've kind of simplified it down into two or a series of arched columns here. Those of you who study ceramic history or ceramic sculpture history will know that these legs actually get implanted down in the ground. So there's actually a real functionality for these. But yes, just these arcs here. It's a very stylized look at a horse. Let's look again at scale. We saw this in the last lecture, Charles Simon's dwellings. This is a group of people in New York City peeking in to see his little tiny pueblos that he did. And here's a look at that again. Just people are really intrigued with miniatures. And this guy does this amazing job of making it look like a real ruin. Alternately, we can go into the monumental, taking everyday mundane objects and making them huge. This is, out in front of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-story building in the back. This is Klaus Oldenburg. Here's another one of his pieces. So we have a clothespin, a saw going down into the earth. So sometimes just sort of humorous, these extremes of scale. Oftentimes buildings for worship are at an awesome scale, huge, like these huge banded columns in Cordoba, Spain. Or this is the Sagrada Familia Cathedral in Barcelona. You walk in and the elements of the interior are just awe-inspiring and huge. They make your head go up and sort of look to the heavens. That's their whole point. These are the lines in Nazca, Peru. Boy, this piece is about, let's see here if I can figure this out. Oh, well, you can get some scale here. This hand is 40 feet across, so you can't even actually see what these things are, get a really good view of them, unless you're up in an airplane. And how they made these on the ground, they didn't make a line of white rocks. This is actually clearing away the stones from the earth, which leaves this kind of this white banding here. Pretty amazing feat, considering that, a person has to go along here and try and figure out what this thing looks like when this is 40 feet across. Pretty remarkable. Here's what the part of these Nazca lines, this is part of a hummingbird. And you can see how the stones were taken away. thing that creates interest for a viewer, makes them more involved, is having some sort of content or meaning to the work. This piece is called "Then Edison's Direct Current Was Failed and the Alternating Current." And this starts to get into more political, often a lot of contemporary work has a political meaning to it. And this is referring to the story of the first death penalty execution, or attempt at an execution. I guess something went wrong with the electrical current. The prisoner wasn't actually killed. It was a huge mess, and people started then talking about, the ethical nature of the death penalty and all that goes with that. It's still going on today. This piece has content in abstract form, but you start seeing sort of ankle cuffs and chains and blades and things, and you start to put it together, and it brings kind of political thoughts to your mind. Oftentimes in Christian churches, we see representations of saints and occurrences that went on in various lives. And this one is called The Ecstasy of St. Teresa. And you see some kind of radiation coming down from the heavens, and St. Teresa, enthralled there outside with a little angel accompanying there. But oftentimes people of that faith will have a certain feeling about the stories that are told within the church. It's not just Christians, but here is an Aztec goddess, the goddess of earth and death, and kind of terrifying and awe-inspiring. The head of this piece is made up of 2 rattlesnake heads. The necklace has a series of hands and hearts, human hearts, and a skull. I suppose if you were Aztec, this would mean something to you. I think it is very interesting for people that aren't of that persuasion. What the heck is this about? Then there's sort of the personal interaction that is of interest for people. Like those mazes and things. This is an installation that is made up of bamboo, and this Japanese artist Teshigahara did a lot of pieces with strips or pieces of bamboo, and you would walk through them. In this case, I don't even know, this looks like in some sort of a institution or something, but to walk through there and see the light and shadows, it would be like going through a forest, a bamboo forest or something. Here, also walking through this angled corridor in Parque Güell. It's another Antoni Gaudí piece, pretty intriguing. This Korean artist, Nam June Paik, does these installations using often television screens, and you know how in our culture, how we're all drawn to that, what's going on in there. He also uses laser projections, prisms, motors, music CDs, mirrors. His quote is, "I make technology look ridiculous." And even though that may be true with this sort of humorous, almost evil-looking robot here, we're still just extremely drawn to go in and see what's going on in this piece. Jewelry, again, can have a very personal aspect of it. In this case, you're wearing it, but it could be filled with pictures of your